So another banner weekend here on Delmarva in Berlin, Maryland's coolest small town, America's coolest small town. It has become a tradition for some friends of ours to have every major life event at our house, and it started at our old house, which was a much bigger house, and they got engaged there. This is Courtney and Jeremy Blackford. They got engaged at our old house at a brunch, as we like to entertain, especially in brunch style. And then it progressed to our new house, which is smaller but still able to fit 80 people for a wedding outside. And again, another barn burner event then, 2 years ago for their wedding. And this past weekend we had their baby shower, also here. Also at the Crowbar, and I just really appreciate the fact that our friends, when having something as dreadful as a baby shower, the day starts off with 4 30-packs of Natural Light going into the cooler, and that's not including the craft beer salespeople that are going to be coming, where our baby showers resemble much more like somebody's senior week than a typical baby shower. It's time for the Todcast.
You're listening to the Happy Hour Todcast, presented by GoodCleanFunLife.com. Find us on iTunes by searching GCFL and subscribe today.
Yes, indeedy. So that was quite a time this past weekend for sure.
So the baby showers are generally painful events. So how did you I mean, I guess, yeah, 120 cans of beer will certainly take the sting out of it. But that's the idea of turning everything into a party. I mean, that's kind of what you do, but it's still you don't think of baby showers in that way.
No, it's a buddy of mine used the quote. It's what for his daughter's 1-year birthday party. He asked a friend, what's the right amount of beer for a 1-year-old birthday party? Of course, to which I respond, all of it.
All of it, absolutely.
No, it was a baby shower is basically a party so that expected parents can get all of the crap that they need, because having babies, you need a ridiculous amount of crap. Bassinets, cribs, diapers out the wazoo, all of that. So it's from what I understand, and maybe why I've never attended one, other than this one, it's it's gift giving, and then it's like opening the gifts in front of everybody and oohing and eyeing over this, that, and the other thing, and there's like silly games and that sort of thing. So we eliminated most of that, or at least put our own spin on it. For instance, the games that we had, Christy Kruger, our dear friend who works for Evo, she's a sales rep over in the Arlington, Washington, D.C. area, brought a variety of different craft beers, and we put them in baby bottles, and then had a craft beer, and then had the bottles lined up in a different order, and we had the contest, so all of these beer lovers could taste and try to see if they could distinguish which was the victory, which was the Stone, which was the Sweet Baby Jesus, which was the mint chocolate chip. I mean, it was pretty fun. So
that's great. One of the things that I would like to complain about in the whole men getting invited to the baby shower thing is I feel like men get screwed on the baby shower. I'm not saying we need to go back to the 1970s. I was pleased and honored to be in the labor room and in the delivery room. I think that's I think that as being a dad, that's one of the cool things that you get to do. But the girls want to have the stuff. The guys do not care about it. The guys would just as soon go out and buy the stuff and be done with it. And so this is really kind of a girl's thing, and I don't mean like a girly thing. I mean it's a thing that girls want to do. But what they realized is that they were having these parties, and guys were like, "Finally, we get a fucking weekend off," and they were all getting together at a bar someplace, and then the girls come home all giggly and, "Oh, wasn't that a cool onesie?" and the guys asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
So sometime in the last decade or so, since I stopped having children, what it's like, oh, now the dad is going to get involved too. But that is bullshit bait and switch.
I think you're right.
And so at least having the courage to have some beer and to say, okay, we'll be here, but we won't be here and be sober, I guess that's a fair trade-off. If I have to go, there better be enough beer to take the pain out, because I'm not a big fan. I don't know. There was this joke in one of the not Godfather movies. Well, it was Goodfellas. They were talking about at a wedding how they don't give presents, they give cash.
Right.
And that's always been the case. Like, except when you were a baby, in Italian culture, just I was in my late 20s before I ever saw a physical present at a wedding. And similarly, I was in my 30s before I went. I think I had to be present for one baby shower because my wife at the time was sick, and the baby could come at any minute. Somebody needed to drive. But other than that, I'm not a putting down guy at all.
Yeah.
Domestically, but I'm a putting down guy when it comes to going to baby showers, unless advertise the beer out front. If there's going to be a lot of beer there, then yeah, advertise that out front.
Well, and I think that's is kind of part and parcel with the parties that we have and our friends, in that we did some of the typical stuff for the mother-to-be's family. Whereas it's the women in the group who are more putting their foot down and saying,
right,
we want to be at the bar getting drunk with you, as opposed to doing the other stuff.
But we have to endure this, so you do too.
Right.
That's fairer.
It was a good compromise.
Now, you mentioned, though, that there was some construction chaos in the pre-show.
Well, it's funny because, we've been talking about this, and, of course, today, 2 days afterwards, and they showed up yesterday, the landscapers came to clean up the yard. And all week long, the weather report was unfavorable for having anybody outside on Saturday and or Sunday, and it was on Sunday. So it wasn't that big of a concern. I'm like, people aren't even going to notice, that sort of thing. We're going to be in the bar, in the house, that sort of thing. Well, it turns out, we had a huge storm on, Sunday morning, and it was beautiful out, and everybody's standing in the mess that is my yard that we've talked about, right outside the window. And yeah, I mean, the landscapers are going to come tomorrow is the line that I had to go with, and it came out to be true. And it looks beautiful out there right now, I got to tell you. So I think I'm going to take a picture of it and send it to all of the attendees of the baby shower.
So they know that the landscaper guy did come and do his job.
Yes.
I mentioned that because I wanted to talk about my own construction. As you know, I'm still in the space station. In the space station. Our house should be done Sunday, and that is first step done. And right now there are guys downstairs doing putting in walls, whatever that's called, drywalling. And the reason that it's interesting is I have a daughter in Wilmington, and she called, and she teaches, and she was done for the semester. So she asked me to come pick her up, so she'd come home for a couple weeks. And on my way up there, I'd run out of podcasts to listen to, so I downloaded Bill Burr's podcast. And it's okay. I wouldn't recommend listening to it every week because it's just him talking. And he doesn't seem to have a plan when he sits down to talk. But it's if you've got a long drive, it's nice to have someone who's just talking, who's not me. So it's not something to listen to with people, but it's a good podcast. And he was talking, he's having the exact same thing done. And as he's talking, you can hear in the background all the hammering and nailing, and And he's like, oh, Jesus, that just cost me another $1,000. I know it, right? And so when you hear this, when you hear the construction here, and his house is just as old as mine, and he's having the same kind of issues that I'm having, and he's making the same decisions, which is, you know what? I'm just going to do it right. I could probably get away with not doing it right because I'm probably going to hand over the house. I'm probably going to try to get out from under this house before too long, and there's stuff that I could totally let go, but it's just ethically wrong. It's ethically wrong. Do the right thing. Because he was talking about the same thing that I discovered, and I'm sure you discovered when you were redoing your house, because you did it yourself, and you were at it for like, I don't know, 7 years, 8 years or something.
Yeah. It felt like it.
And you see every do-it-yourself hack job. And you're like, I guess this is when he got the Time Life How to Rewire book, and this is when, he got the do-it-yourself molding from the hardware store, and over and over and over again.
Well, having been in the construction industry and that sort of thing, I was actually reminded as we were getting some things together for the party, there are so many things that are undone in the house. And I apologize to some people because, we had done a big push to do some, do-it-yourselfer projects before the wedding, which was 2 years ago. We're coming up on 2 years ago. And the house is we've done a little spot painting and this, that, and the other thing, but we really haven't done a whole lot. And I was in the construction business for years, superintendent, then my own renovation remodel company, and I just remembered how much I love the creative side of things and how frustrated I get with the physical construction side of things.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how happy I am to be sitting here in my office. I was a little late for the podcast because I'm editing away. And, you get into the zone, editing some video. And I lost track of time for a minute. And meanwhile, there's a couple of, very qualified men outside sweating their asses off, doing what needs to be done to make my yard look like it's great.
Yes, and that was because I'm trying to do this as cheaply as possible, but I'm also not going to sacrifice anything, so I hired myself out as strong back labor. Right. When we were doing the demolition, the professionals took apart what needed to be taken apart, and I carried stuff. And I was very happy to have the drywall guys come because now there's literally nothing I can do because that's a job for a professional. That is I can stand there and look at them,
right,
or I can leave them the hell alone. But they're doing their job as professionals, and there's nothing that I can do. And that's just cool. It's just like, nothing's going to happen today that I need to fix.
Well, I think of the quote for one of my favorite quotes from the Addams Family. Addams Family Values when they're looking for a nanny for Wednesday and Pugsley, and Gomez says to his Uncle Fester, it's like, oh, someday I hope you'll know the joy of having your own children and then paying somebody else to raise them.
Yes.
It's like, I hope one day you'll have the joy of owning a house and then paying somebody else to take care of it.
Yes, it is a satisfying thing, And what was the other funny thing is I've kind of upped the ante. I've been writing for the Metropolitan. My first couple stories are out this month in the Metropolitan. I've been writing in the Metropolitan, and that was the other thing he was talking about. He was like, I was going to take the summer off, and then they found this stuff in the house, and now I got to go back on tour, right? And and he was like, so every time there was a noise, he'd say, oh, and that's another night at the Oddball Comedy Tour or whatever. And that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I'm just going to. In June, the plan was just to do the house, and then in late June, it was. Well, to write the book and do the house. And then in July, it was write the book, do the house, and plan this big event at the Shorebird Stadium. And then 2 weeks ago, it was those three things. And now, here's some freelance work. And I've been doing well enough that they've been just throwing work at me, and more than I could ever ask for, like way more than I wanted. But I'm not gonna turn them down. I can't say no. So in the meantime, we're hanging on by a thread here. So we'll see how.
I like it. At that point, I like to say stupid ambition.
Yeah, it's just. But I can. I'm like, okay, I did 5 stories last week. We don't have to. We can get nicer furniture. I did 7 stories next week. Month. We can get the molding we like instead of the molding we don't like and stuff like that. But yeah, you just gotta. I guess that's the upside of being able to kind of set your own prices. Is like, okay, this is what I'm willing to get. This is what I'm willing to pay for. But now I have to go out and earn that.
Right. Well, I mean, Stupid Ambition. We've been busy, and it's funny. Again, a couple people have, here we are in August. We haven't. We've we're starting to think about the fall and the end of the season, but a couple of people are like, oh, well, how are things going? And I'm like, I don't know. We kind of do what we do, and the lights are still on. We have food on the table, and and beer in our belly. So, like, we'll just keep rolling with that. But I mean, it was an ambitious weekend with having the party on Sunday. We did work for DeFibo's restaurant. We spent a couple hours in the kitchen there filming, which was so much fun. Like it's great to be. I love restaurants. I love food. I love the restaurant industry, and it's so much fun to be there and have no no responsibility, and to be able to film the guy, the runner getting yelled at for taking the wrong food to the wrong table, or or the prep work. There's a 20 person party that's coming in, and the peppers and onions are no good.
What now? Can you tell me a little about the Fibos? I've never been. It's in, what'd you say, Bethany?
It's on Route 26 in Bethany. It's been there for forever, as far as I know. It started out as a little breakfast shack, and then Bob DeFibo Sr. Used to make his own Italian sauce, and it's just a great Italian family-owned business. Lisa, the daughter, married this guy Jeff Osias. They met at culinary school, so they run it together. Lisa, spoiler is that Lisa has done some work for the Food Network, and just things haven't worked out, but she's got a lot of ideas and a lot of connections too. So basically, we're putting a little trailer together, maybe a web series, maybe something we try to actually do some video production work on, but. She's also a spitfire, I mean, she and I remember this because it was the other family connection is her sister is Michelle, married Josh Freeman. It's all the Freeman companies combination. It's the first place I worked when we moved down here 16 years ago or something like that, waiting tables, and it was neat. It's like to be part of the family. And the best part is, so they had this wedding party that was coming in. We were filming basically the preparation, them getting 20 dinners out at once for the family, while the restaurant was completely full. Mm-hmm. And so we were doing all that. So we filmed in the kitchen for about 2 hours, and then she's like, all right, I'll feed you. So we sat down, ordered a bottle of wine, and just had her send us stuff. And the perks of what we do. This is, I mean, there's no better perk than that. Is just being able to be treated this is what I want you to eat this because I think you're gonna like it, and to have somebody send stuff out to you is definitely a cool experience. So.
Yeah, there is a restaurant called Per Se in New York. And there's another one called the French Laundry in California, and they're both owned by the same guy. The French Laundry, I think, is the the best restaurant in the country or one of those. It's just really, and that's what they do. You pay a fee to go there, and you do not order.
Right.
You pay a fee to go there, and you sit down, and they bring you your food.
Yeah. That's how dining should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The cool thing is the chef was talking about it in this interview I heard, and he said, we bring you just enough that you want more. And so when you're like, oh, this is the best, I would love another bite, and then you're disappointed that you don't have another bite, then something else comes out.
Right.
And he said because when you hit that pinnacle, everything else you're eating, you're not enjoying as much. And so that's they create these portions that are just the right amount to love it, but not enough to fill up on it, to always feel a little disappointed, to always feel like you didn't get enough food, but to bring so much food in succession that you leave full and you're like, oh, that was great. I wish I could have more of this. I wish I could have more of that. And you can't ever, because it probably takes 6 to 8 years to get a reservation in the place. Yeah.
Well,
You were saying earlier that you were across the bay watching Jurassic 5. I'm not familiar with them.
Really, I'm surprised you don't know Jurassic 5. They are a 20-year-old hip hop band that has been, in a little bit off the mainstream, De La Soul sort of style.
I know that there's such a thing. I've heard the words De La Soul altogether before, but I couldn't pick out a De La Soul song. No.
3 Feet High and Rising. They were. We went. It was the first time I've ever been to a show at Pier 6, which was a great place to go. This in Baltimore, down by the Inner Harbor, and close to Harbor East, which is a really fancy place. I don't think people would think this, but when we make it big, we'll have a condo in Harbor East, and it's kind of like a schmaltzy place, not like Hamden or Federal Hill or something like that. But for whatever reason, we're drawn to that little area. But Pier 6 is right there, and actually the coolest thing is, and through social media, I actually saw a buddy of mine had done it. It's right there. Well, it's on a pier. Surprise, surprise. And so you can just if you got a boat, you can just pull up pretty much right outside the venue, and you got to look past the vendors that are lining the dock area, the pier area, and you got almost front row seats. So I thought that was a good way to go.
I wonder if you could rent those boats during that time, those paddle boats for the.
I didn't see any paddle boats. I did see some kayaker guys. So,
yeah.
So that could have been that might be the better way to go.
Yeah, it seems like a lot to avoid paying for a concert ticket. Let me pack up all my shit and drive it all out and then paddle all around the point to get there. And so the other thing that we wanted to go over just real quick before we get to the weekend is I got your photos for the book. I'm writing a book. I don't know if I've mentioned. And I think I chose 2. But the one I chose that I liked a lot, I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, was there was one with Sean, big red-bearded Sean, standing in the cold of Burley Oak before it opened at one of those pre-tastings. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Now this was before anything was in there, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That was actually a pretty cool night because Brian was being contacted or was looking at the place, and this is when we first got the introduction to Brian, and he's like, I brewed some beer, and we're just going to do this thing. And one of his buddies who was helping him out with sort of marketing at the time said, you got to talk to Todd and Natalie. They'll help get the word out there. So that's what we did. And, it was like there was still a toilet in the corner. There was low lights. It was an old broken down. We had a kegger with 5 or 6 people in an abandoned warehouse in Berlin. I mean, it's actually kind of amazing to think about, what it's become and the amount of and the attraction that it is now. That people go to that place, for the sake of going to that place, and we're there and I'm like, we could be arrested for just being here,
It's funny, when we went there to do the shot, he had just put up the shelves in the back to put the malt on and all the grain, and I just remember that just was always up there. There's a great shot of the two of you that I took sitting on the piles of grain in the back there, and that was 3 years ago or whatever. And you just I got around finally to putting up the shelves. So
yeah, we might as. I mean, we have 20-foot ceilings. Might as well go vertical with our storage space.
And so, and on that note, let's talk about what you guys got coming up for the weekend. You got a busy weekend, or
what is this weekend? Oh, this weekend is
7th, I think.
It's going to be a little bit. Well, it's going to be a family weekend. So we're going to go see Scribe, who's playing at Burley Oak on Friday night. We had our fake daughter, Robin, has been back in town, so we went to the beach with her the other day. And then we're doing the D Hart family reunion up at my parents' cabin up in Western Maryland. It's been in the family for probably close to 35 years now, and unfortunately they're selling it. Like, I've been going up there for years and years, so I'm taking the kids up there. We're gonna do we call it the place.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna do the place for the weekend, and spend some time up there. I'm probably gonna be filming some stuff and put together a nice little last waltz or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's last hurrah, right?
Yeah, totally. It'll be. I'm preparing for it to be a little bit upsetting. But it will be my job to capture that emotion.
Yeah. It's always we talk about my father's been sick for some time. He has this not to get depressing, because it's not depressing anymore. He has this like incredibly slow moving cancer that may or may not kill him in the next 10 to 30 years. And it was 2 years ago. I think it was like really scary for like 6 weeks, and now it's like he's
right.
dying of being alive, So, but he's become obsessed now with what's going to happen to the house after he dies. Now, the man has smoked for 70, 60 years, and he drinks. He will not. He's skinny. He's Italian skinny, so he's just going to naturally be skinny. But he doesn't exercise, and just he's in horrible shape.
Yeah.
And all he's talking about is after I die, what are you going to do with the house? And he wants a decision. And I keep saying to him, well, the odds are better than average. Your mommy's going to outlive you. I'm like, if you both die in a... So we finally, the brothers and I all got together and said that if they died in a wreck, we would probably keep the house because it would be too... The house is worth a bunch of money, but there are 6 of us. So, right. I mean, even if we sold it for $1 million, divided by 6, it's not...
It would go quick.
Right, and the taxes are about $6,000 a year. So for $1,000 a man, we all have our own vacation home in New Jersey for whenever we want it. Yeah. So that was the way we were able to work that out. But I know it's tough when you get used to going someplace, and that's what it was. I'm like, I would rather pay the $1,000, $2,000 a year than not be able to go, because we're kind of used to having that to go to. It would be tough to give it up.
Yeah. Well, and moving to the beach was definitely, it's 5 hours away and that sort of thing. So, it will be interesting. It will be great, actually, to see all of the family, most of the extended DeHart family, which we haven't done. It will make my mom very happy, which of course makes all of us very happy. So.
Very cool. And just a real quick mention, if you'd like to check out my other podcast, I think I might try to do video on that as well. I think I might get away from... I think we're cutting edge. We're 2 steps ahead. And I may try to hang out on the other podcast as well, which you can find at stateofthebeer.com. And this week, I'm going to be talking about having interviewed a man named Alan Pugsley, who is... when the craft beer revolution started in England in the 70s, there was a man named Peter Austin who invented this old-timey brewing. He reinvented brewing. essentially, so that craft breweries could operate. Because there's this thing called, I didn't know this until, I vaguely knew it, but it's called the Real Ale Revival, and it was a movement in Britain to bring back real ale because there were too many Budweiser-type beers. And so this guy, Peter Austin, built the mechanics that allowed that to take place. One of his first assistants was Alan Pugsley, who in the mid-'80s came over here and opened every brewery. He was putting in these Peter Austin systems in Canada, in South America. I'm talking to him because he started Wild Goose. He started Shipyard, which is still there. He started a bunch of them. The list of breweries that he started that closed is almost as extensive as the list that's open. It was just, he was the only guy who knew how to build breweries. He was one of 3 guys.
Wow.
So yeah, in the first 6 years, he built 20 breweries in 6 years, from 88 to 92 or 94.
So you interviewed him, and is he gonna be on the podcast, or
he's not gonna be on the podcast? He's not available, but I'm going to interview him right before the podcast and then talk about it.
Gotcha.
And this is a beer podcast, so if you're not interested in beer, then you're not going to be interested in the podcast. But yeah, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to see how that works out for us tomorrow. And I've got my sexy new microphone, so I think we'll have 2 people on screen at the same time, so that will be fascinating to watch, I'm sure.
Yes, and I agree. We are that's what we are 2 steps ahead, but still somehow behind.
We're on the corner. We're on the curve. That's
yes.
We're maybe behind the ahead of the wave and behind the curve.
Right. We're leading edge, not bleeding edge. Bleeding edge is they're out there.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. And so we'll wrap it up for this early edition. Hopefully next week things will get back to normal. But until then, you got anything else?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, may Todd give you the sense to live in a small town?
We'll see you next week at Happy Hour.
Cheers.
For more, go to goodcleanfunlife.com for podcasts, event calendars, articles, and more. Call or text us at 703-828-GCFL.